pod bay doors.
Greetings and welcome to another exciting episode of The Cinematic Traveler. I am your intrepid movie exploring host, Chris, and on this episode, we are once again diving back into the horror genre with the second feature film from the Philippou brothers. I think that's how you say that, who came out with a movie a couple of years ago I really enjoyed called Talk to Me. Well, this is their follow-up to that film entitled Bring Her Back. And if you are a regular, or should I say avid listener or watcher, you know that I love talking about horror movies. So this is going to be a fun episode. I cannot wait to dive in. But before I do, I have to ask a favor of you. You know what I'm going to say. Whatever you're watching or listening to this show on, if you could please hit the follow, subscribe button. I'd appreciate that. It does help me and the show, but it also helps you. You won't miss any of my future episodes. And you can go back and listen to my amazing previous reviews and hear this sexy, sexy voice. And on a few of them, you get to see this sexy, sexy face. Oh, Lord. Yeah, I haven't really received a lot of fan mail confirming that. I just want to let you know. You can comment as well. Comment on the videos and let me know that this is, in fact, a sexy, sexy face. But if you could do that, I would greatly appreciate it. I hope you're doing well out there, my beloved audience member. I can't just say listener anymore since we have the YouTube, if you call it that. But I hope you're doing well. We are quickly rushing into the heat of the summer here in North America. And I am definitely regretting the choice of wearing a shirt and tie on every episode. Oh, the mistakes I have made in my life. So many that I cannot count. Speaking of mistakes, was it a mistake to go check out Bring Her Back? Well, you're going to have to listen to the whole review to find out. And before I get officially into it, I do have to over-explain a couple of things. First of all, I am going to give you a spoiler-free review and a spoiler-free plot synopsis. Now, in that plot synopsis, I have hidden a movie quote from another movie that either shares some DNA with this film or runs parallel to it. If you can identify that movie that it's from and get in touch with me, I would say through Instagram at Cinematic Traveler Pod. I also have an email address, thecinematictravelerpod@gmail.com. Or if you want to leave it in the comment section on whatever you're listening or watching the show on, I will give you a point for getting it right. At the end of the month, I add up all the points. Whoever wins gets to pick a movie for me to review next month. Oh my God. Oh my God, that is exciting. I know that prize has caused you to spontaneously orgasm wherever you are. And I am sorry for the embarrassment, but I am glad that I could excite you with such news. But yes, you could pick a movie for me to review next month. If you only listen every now and then, or this is your first time listening, you can play along just to let me know you're out there. I do appreciate that as I sit behind my fort of blankets, sweating profusely under my shirt and tie. So now that I have caught you up with that, let's talk about Bring Her Back.
Yeah, it's going to be fun on the bun.
Again, this movie is directed by Danny and Michael Philippou. I think that's how you say her name. Again, I'll probably mess it up. I apologize, fellas. I'm an American in the South. I can't barely say my name, much less anybody else's. But yeah, as I said earlier, I did like that movie, Talk to Me. I thought that was a really fun, especially that's their first movie. It was a really fun supernatural thriller with a little more to it as far as mental health issues and stuff like that. But I really didn't even know what Bring Her Back was when I first heard about it. I just heard that they had directed, and this is their follow-up. So I was in because of Talk to Me. So with Bring Her Back, we open the movie with Piper, played by Zora Wong, a young visually impaired girl, and her older stepbrother Andy, played by Billy Barrett, and they are on their way home, where a tragedy awaits them. After said tragedy, Piper and Andy are placed in the foster care of Laura, played by Sally Hawkins, who has lost her daughter recently in a terrible drowning accident. Laura has another foster child as well, Oliver, played by Jonah Wren Phillips, and Oliver is one creepy kid. How creepy is he? Well, I'm glad you asked. He is so creepy. You'll be grabbing a crucifix and saying, "The power of Christ compels you." Hint, hint. I'm really giving that one away. This is where my plot synopsis gets a bit tricky as I don't want to spoil anything. Let's just say Laura isn't the happy Aussie she appears to be, and she has a big reason to be a foster parent, especially to Piper. I won't even say anything about Oliver's role in the plot other than to reiterate creepy little shit. So, does the movie deliver on the thrills and chills? Or will it fail to bring her back because it lost a receipt? I know that one wasn't the best. Well, actually, I think I am going to answer those questions, but I won't spoil the movie in this review, which will be the best review for Bring Her Back in all the podcast or YouTuber universe. Nay, in all of the universe. And before we get into this review, as I mentioned, this is going to be spoiler free, so it's going to be a bit tricky. As you could tell from my plot synopsis, I am not going to give you any details to this film, or at least as little as possible. I went into this, as I mentioned, completely unaware of what this film was going to be. Outside of one little bit of information that I had read, not so much. I don't watch reviews or anything like that before I do my reviews. I don't want to be tainted by anybody else's opinion. And there's our opinion. Mine are straight up facts. I don't give movie opinions. I give movie facts. But God, I'm so full of shit. But I did see, I think it was a video on YouTube or something that the thumbnail headline was something about kids and horror movies, and it had a picture of this movie. So I knew that this was going to involve children in the horror of the film. But other than that, I had no idea what was going on. And it really did help me out in this movie. And that's why I don't really want to spoil anything. And I would recommend not watching or reading any other reviews before you see the movie. That way you can go in there fresh. Because I don't even remember seeing a trailer for this movie, to be honest with you. So you definitely want to go in this without any prior knowledge. So why don't we talk about the positives of Bring Her Back?
Sounds pleasant.
And I think on this one, I'm going to start with the Philippou brothers, or Filippo. I'm not exactly sure. Again, I know. I got to stop over explaining that crap. Who cares? I live in America. What are they going to do? They're in Australia. Shit. Fuck off. But no, I do want to commend that this is their second feature, and I think I'm hooked. I think they're going to get my money from here on out with whatever project they do next and next and next and next. They are really excellent filmmakers. This movie is exceptional at drawing you in. There's some great camera work in the movie. It does one of those things, I think I've said it on previous episodes, I really where the camera moves maybe a step behind a character to where you're kind of trying to peer around the corner to see what they're up to, get you on the edge of your seat, builds a little more intrigue that way. But that camera, they use it very well. It glides throughout this movie. There are some great images framed in there. There's a lot of imagery of circles. Again, I don't want to get into any spoilers, but that is a reoccurring thing throughout the film, and they use different camera tricks and different angles to show that off. I also like the sound design in this film. That's one I rarely bring up. It is kind of cool. They have this sort of ticking sound that goes throughout the movie that you hear from time to time that's kind of cool. And, you know, all the stuff in horror movies where things drop and doors slam and someone slams on a window, shit breaks. Yeah, it really does make you jump in your seat from time to time. It's unsettling, unnerving at points. And we'll get into some of the writing and the character development here in a minute, but I think this movie is really exceptional at drawing you into the film. I mentioned that earlier, but yeah, I was pretty much on the edge of my seat throughout the film. I do think because we have child characters in the movie that are in peril, that, you know, that naturally, I'm a parent, so that naturally gets me on edge to begin with. So you're kind of already got a point where you're rooting for certain characters in the film, but at the same time, there's twists and turns everywhere. There's the mystery of it. They just give you enough to keep it going. And so overall, the Philippou brothers once again have impressed me with their craftsmanship as directors in the horror genre. They've also impressed me again with their cast and how they work with them. Talk to Me had a relatively unknown cast, and we follow that in this film. Piper, played by Sora Wong, is obviously your sympathetic protagonist of the film. She is visually impaired. She can barely see anything. So she has to be helped out throughout her life, and she kind of wants to fit in, but she's also got this side of her that she knows she's not going to. and she doesn't want to be treated like a baby because of her issues with her sight. But again, she also has to have someone there to help her. So you can see the conflict in that. And she's a young girl. I think she's only like 11 or 12 years old, maybe in this movie. So she's got that innocence and she's a bit naive. So she gets to be really trusting, especially with Laura. So she kind of buys into the manipulation that comes her way. By the end, you're really rooting for her and hoping that what might happen doesn't happen. Again, I don't want to spoil anything. Her brother Andy, played by Billy Barrett, he is 17, but he's very protective of Piper. He's been taking care of her for a long time. They have a good relationship, a good brother sister relationship. And you could tell that he's really trying to be a positive force in her life and watch out for her and make sure she's okay. There is some stuff in his past. It's amazing to watch a movie where characters get developed and they have things in their past that cause them to act a certain way throughout the movie, bring issues up. Oh, it's a well thought out script. Okay, we'll get there in a minute. But I think Billy Barrett is a very good performance. I was, again, another character I was rooting for in the movie, and he makes this a character that I'm rooting for all the way through to the end, especially as we learn more and more about Laura's plan and where that's going to take everybody. Oh my God. Anyway, speaking of Laura, played by Sally Hawkins, she's a very good horror villain. As I mentioned, she's very manipulative, especially with Piper. And she plays on the fact that Piper cannot see very well and uses that to her advantage. She also can manipulate Andy and get him to reveal things and then turn around and use that against him. And she has a mission that she is on, and she's kind of hell bent to get there. And she will do anything at any cost, at any extremely gory cross to get there. So, yeah, she's definitely a very memorable horror villain. And Jonah Wren Phillips as Oliver, there's not really much to say about his performance other than creepy little shit. so overall, I think all of the major actors in the movie do an excellent job of getting you to either despise or root for their character to bring more to it. As I mentioned, we'll get into some of the writing or the script and stuff. There's a lot here for these characters to delve into. I will say Piper's probably the most innocent character in the movie. Everybody else, especially Andy and Laura, they have their history and they have things in their lives that bring a deeper understanding as to their motivations. And you really start to fear some of the characters. And like I said, you're really rooting for the heroes in this movie. And that is something that tends to make horror movies a little scarier, is if you actually are rooting for the characters. I know there's different types. We just talked about Final Destination Bloodlines, where there's just characters that you just want to see bad things happen to just because you're sick in the head, like I am. Whereas in this movie, there are characters that you don't want to see anything bad happen to. And when they're getting pushed in those directions, you really start to get on the edge. There were times, like I said, in the movie theater where I was leaning forward or I was thinking in my head, please, no, God, don't go that way. Don't go that way. But yeah, so I think the characters and their history and everything, that they're well developed so that I do care about them. This movie, it touches on themes of grief, loss of a loved one, traumas, childhood traumas, adult traumas, the foster care system, and, dealing with the government when you have an issue with the foster care system. So there's a lot going on in this movie, more than just your standard straightforward horror movie, which is nice. They did the same thing with Talk to Me. And it's nice to see those types of movies. I do love a fun horror flick that ain't got much to it and some slasher stuff and gore and all that fun stuff. But it's also nice to kind of turn the other way and see something that is well developed, well thought out. Everything has a setup and a payoff towards the end of the movie. So, again, the Philippou brothers, you've done a great job. I cannot praise this movie enough. Have you already figured out what my final verdict for the film is going to be? I will tell you, this is a brutal movie. It was funny. I was halfway into the movie and there was just a little bit of blood. And I was thinking, okay, this isn't going to be too gory. I'll give you a gore score at the end. So I was thinking, all right, it's going to be kind of, and then all this shit hits the fan. And yeah, it is unflinching in its brutality, especially when it is dealing with kids. And they really don't hold back throughout the movie. If something bad's going to happen to a kid, it's going to be something bad happen to a kid. So we'll get to some of that in the negatives here. So yeah, this is, oh, I hate the word unflinching, but yeah, this is a movie that will, even for me as a gore hound, there were times where I had to look away from the screen, especially with whatever age the character was that something was happening to. I would just be like, oh God, oh, that's a struggle for me right there. So be warned. Okay, we're getting into some negative stuff. Let's do one more positive. This movie comes in, I think, in an hour and 40 something minutes. Perfectly timed, perfectly paced movie. It is a slow burn. It starts out with you in that tragedy for Piper and Andy, and then you kind of go into the foster care and them learning about Laura and all this stuff. But I think it's paced well enough that even in the slower moments, it gives you just enough teases about the overall plan that Laura has to keep you invested in the mystery. You're kind of like, okay, wait, what does this mean? How is this going to play into what's going on with these characters? And then you start to piece things together and you go, oh shit. And now you're kind of ahead of the characters by, I would say, halfway into the movie. And that's really where you get on the edge of your seat because you're like, no, 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 I know what's going to happen. You don't want to go that direction. So, again, a slow burn, but at a good pace, if that makes any kind of sense. It doesn't wait until the end of the movie to reveal everything. It gives you enough breadcrumbs to keep you interested throughout the film. Now, as much praise as I am heaping on this film, it is not without its faults. So let's talk about the negatives of Bring Her Back.
Uh-oh, I don't like the sound of that.
And I think I will follow up with the whole kids in peril situation. As I mentioned earlier, I am a parent, so I don't really care much for movies where kids are kind of put in peril. I know horror movies have them, kids usually in there. A lot of times it's like a supernatural movie, so you can kind of separate reality from that, or they're not really involved in the goriest parts of the film. However, for this movie, yeah, these kids are right in the middle of the horror. They have horrible things happening to them. There's a horrible plan for them, and there's a lot of gore revolving around it, especially when you get about halfway into the movie. Yeah, things get really bloody. And if you don't like that sort of thing, again, especially with kids, you're not going to like this movie. It's not going to be for you. I think it's a well-made movie and it has a great plot and interesting characters. But yeah, if that makes you squeamish, then you're really not going to like this movie. There was another thing that had me on the edge of my seat is Laura has a pet cat. And there are moments that cat gets into harm's way. I think that gave me as much anxiety as seeing the kids in trouble. Every time you would think something bad happened, the cat would show you like, oh God, thank God. So anyway, yeah, if you're not into those kind of things, then you are going to struggle this movie because the Philippiles, they do not hold back. This is not some light, fun horror flick. Like I said, Final Destination is just kind of a fun, silly horror movie that you get into and you enjoy the ride. This has got a lot of themes to it that are deep. You got a lot of issues with the kids involved in it that are going to hit you right in the feels. And yeah, it's just one of those movies where you're not walking out of the theater like, oh, that was a whole lot of fun. Woohoo, what a great horror movie. It's a great horror movie, but it's not one of those. So be prepared in that sense. It's not one of those types. This is a really emotional film, a really emotional film. And I will say for my last, I know this is almost, really both of these are almost nitpicks. I struggled to find something I didn't like about this movie. The only other thing was you do have a stupid horror movie character moment involving the foster care person in charge of all that. With that, I was like, yeah, come on. Why would you handle the situation like that? So that's the only time where anything stuck out to me is like, okay, that's dumb horror movie character doing a dumb horror movie thing. But other than that, I think everything else is thought out, well written, well conceived, well acted, well shot. Everything works in this movie for me, even though there are kids in harm's way in this film. But you know what I say? Fuck them. You want to be a creepy little shit in a horror movie? You're going to get what you deserve, you little bastards. I'm just kidding. Actually, like I said, there were times where I had to look away. I was like, oh, God, no, that's too much. But at any rate, my final verdict for Bring Her Back, and I think this movie is going to divide a lot of people because if you fall into the camp that you don't want to see kids in a gory horror movie having to deal with that kind of stuff and oh my God, if you're easily triggered, yeah, this movie probably isn't going to be real. Like I said, it touches on a lot of subjects and it also does not hold back from showing you the horrors of what's happening because of this plan that Laura has. So I would say go see it. I think it's probably one of the best movies, maybe one of the best horror movies I've seen this year. I'm trying to think if there's one that I did like. Final Destination Bloodlines, but like I said, that's a different movie than this. This is a whole different creature. But this film, the Philip Powells, they do a great job. They pull you right into this world. They keep you on the edge of your seat. You've got characters that you care about. Even the villain, you kind of understand their motivation and you can see what's pushing her to do what she wants to do. You feel bad for some characters where bad things happen to them. Again, I don't want to spoil anything. But yeah, and plus for me, it had gore in it. So I'm always happy with that. So I would recommend going to watch it. I think this is a masterclass in horror filmmaking. Again, the Philip Powells, you've got my money now. Whatever your third film is, I don't even need to see a trailer. You could just say your movie's coming out on such and such date, and I will be there, money in hand. So yeah, again, if you don't like the negatives that I gave this movie, then stay away from it, or maybe watch it on streaming. So if you can't make it through, you can kind of bail out on it. But if you can deal with that stuff, this is really a well made movie, and I am thoroughly impressed. And I can't wait for their next film. But before I wrap it up, I better give you a gore score. I almost forgot I've been talking about it so much. Yeah, like I said, halfway into the movie, I thought, oh, this could be kind of low. And by the end, I was adjusting my score accordingly. And this is the only thing I give a number rating to. 1 is being hardly any gore, and 5 is Terrifier 3 levels of gore. God, I almost want to give this a 5 because with Terrifier 3, it's so cartoonish that you kind of laugh at it, whereas this was not. Everything that's gory and violent in this movie is painful. I don't think it's as over the top as Terrifier 3. Let's give this a 4 out of 5. This is a very gory movie. Again, it didn't start that way, but by the end, there is blood and gore and nastiness everywhere. So be warned in those regards. But overall, like I said, I think this is an excellent horror movie. Probably one of my favorite movies of the year so far. And speaking of creepy little kids, should I share my story at the theater? So I get there and I go up to the concession stand and I was in the line all by myself. And the worker behind the counter there, we were making small talk. He was asking me what movie I was going to see and whatnot while he was getting my stuff ready. And I was talking about this horror movie and I said, I don't know much about it, but I heard it's got something with kids and stuff. And then I kind of just glanced to my side because I kept seeing something to my side. And I look over and there's this little tiny kid, no parents around, no other kids, just standing right next to me. I wanted to ask the guy behind the counter, do you see this little kid standing right here? So it was a bit unnerving until I smacked him in the face and told him, get the fuck away from me, you little brat. No, I didn't do that. Finally, his parents showed up, but I thought it was pretty funny going into a movie with creepy kids that there was this little creepy shit behind me in the popcorn line. At any rate, next week, I will be back with a review for Ballerina, a spinoff from the John Wick series. What's this? Ana de Armas? Kicking ass? Oh, sign me up. Sign me up for Ana de Armas, really in anything. So I am looking forward to returning to the John Wick universe and seeing a bunch of gunplay and fun stuff like that. Plus, again, Ana de Armas. If you watch the YouTube video, I will have lots of pictures of Ana de Armas in that video. Yes. What kind of old man am I? Anyway, so I will be talking to you next week. Now, if you have made it this far into the episode, I must have done something right. And if I did, if you could please, again, subscribe, follow, hit the bell or whatever, comment on something, share the show with your friends, family, loved ones, creepy little kids. I don't care. Share it on your social media. Again, you can find me on social media. Mostly I'm on Instagram at Cinematic Traveler Pod. I'm also on Twitter and Blue Sky, but I hardly ever go on there. No, I need to do a better job of promoting this show. If anybody has any tips, I would greatly appreciate it. Or I do have my email address, thecinematictravelerpod@gmail.com. If you want to get in touch with me, tell me how great I'm doing. Tell me how sexy I look. Play the contest. We'll give them some points, and then next month you could pick a movie for me to review. Maybe something with even creepier little shit-ass brat kids in it. Really freak me out. Anyway, yeah, let me know you're out there. I'd appreciate it. Also, I do appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen or watch my show. I tell everyone I know I've got the smartest and sexiest audience in all the podcaster, YouTuber universe, and you never fail to live up to those high standards. It's amazing. God, it's amazing. Y'all turn me on so much. And as you are traveling around on this blue and green ball bouncing through the cosmos, avoiding creepy little kids, I need you to do one thing for me. Go out and do that voodoo that you do so well.
All right, show's over. I'm tired.